Mom and dad, please hear us. I'm begging you. We built the sextalk.com to give you the easy button. We literally downloaded 25 years of the best stuff we got to give to mom and dad. It's only 14 nights of choosing to watch that instead of Netflix, and you'll be good to go. That seems like a low bar to protect the future of your children and secure their innocence.
Welcome to the Naked Gospel, where shame has no power, God's glory is boundless, and we get to carry that story in our bodies. Here we have conversations about sex, singleness, marriage, pornography, parenting, everything beyond and in between. We're featured on every major podcast platform, as well as YouTube. So please like, subscribe, share, so that you can join the movement that is already achieving a revival of sexual integrity throughout the entire kingdom.
Today, we are going to be talking about parenting. This is going to be a conversation about how we bring about an entire generation that didn't have my story of early age of exposure to hardcore pornography and then an addiction for the better part of 20 years. And so many of the people we're talking to, that's often the norm. That's often the story. Something was done to you. Most of the time it wasn't done of your own volition. And now you are in the throes of a response. And how many times did you wish your parents had engaged, whatever age you are right now? And so the frame is going to be thesextalk.com. It's our easy button to help mom and dad really change this narrative forever. This is not something we can ignore because we can't allow our children to continually be subsumed into this pornified culture where we are just asking for them to have the most difficult things that they will experience for the rest of their lives, early into marriage, and then when they're raising children, and just the fallout ensues when we don't prioritize the next generation. Wheeler, you have an amazing story as well as a parent and as an individual whose parents parented well in this area. So maybe what's some of your background that someone who's listening doesn't know about?
I just had a stupid lucky upbringing where I was permitted to get through all of my formative years without having the first brush with anything pornographic. No magazines, no internet, no cinema, no sexualized nudity of any kind in my imagination aside from my wife. I was 21 before I knew that my story was unusual. And the rarity of my context has only become more pronounced the older I've gotten. So that at 21, I started to see, oh, maybe this is exceptional. And, especially since I haven't been here for a few years, we don't have another case like it anywhere else. And then to have my dad, same story, my grandfather, same story. And now our kids. We have 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls. Oldest is 19, youngest is 10. And all of them have the same situation. Because of how the tech is today, Adina and I have had to be much more hyper-vigilant to secure that. When you live in an era where the children, the pre-pubescent kids, have the smartphones in their pockets, I knew that we were going to have to, I don't call it helicopter parenting, I call it Black Hawk helicopter parenting. This thing is ready to send some incendiaries downrange. And if we don't, somebody else gets there. If we don't give our kids their sexual template, they will get it from somebody else, and it's going to be much worse. We all know all the things about how unrealistic pornography is, and yet that's the primary sex education for not just kids in America, but this has become a global pandemic. We talk to people from all around the world, and you have remote tribesmen that somehow have cell phones and 4 bars reception. And what are they looking at?
Pornography.
It's baffling. Places where you wouldn't think it could get, it has proliferated to. So I always wanted to prolong my kids' innocence and naivety as long as possible. And we had more years than, on the job we actually recommend to parents. But we had very controlled environments for them. Strict media access. They did not have devices of their own. They didn't go to sleep with anything like that in their room. When we moved to a different neighborhood and that group of kids had cell phones, had smartphones, that was the day where I went, well, now I have to open their imagination to some dark corners of the world. I had to introduce them to the concepts so that I could remove the allure once one of their friends wanted to say, hey, check this out, or hey, do you know about such and such? Or the things that we know happen all too often where one child sexualizes another because this is a game they learned how to play. And so I think my oldest would have been around 11 or so, somewhere in there, where because of the neighborhood situation change, I was like, all right, the time is upon us. It took me I don't understand things unless I understand them analogously. If I don't have a metaphor to cling to, I don't really have a handlebar. Because I was struggling with that tension of knowing what's necessary, but also clinging to the ideal. And the ideal is they shouldn't have to learn about these things until we're approaching their wedding. The very best scenario would be all of those feelings are just dormant until romance is appropriately in view as they can reasonably pursue marriage.
Yep.
We don't get that. If we lived in an oppressive totalitarian regime where it was categorically illegal to be a believer, to be a Christian in any way, if we lived in that kind of country, I would not be able to just wish that my kids would survive well there. I would have to train them with survival instincts of how to be a believer where they also have to be subversive about it. It wouldn't be enough to just wait for them to bump their noses against the cruelties of that culture and hope that it works out. I would have to be preveniently, aggressively vigilant on their behalf. A lot of training, a lot of early, often, and ongoing conversations of how to be a believer in a place that doesn't want you to be that at all. Once I had that framework, it's like, this is that. We do have the ever-looming specter of a device or a single conversation hijacking their nervous system for the rest of their lives. In many ways, that's worse than if you lived in an oppressive country, because then at least you know where the enemy is. You know what to avoid. But if you're dealing with a sexualized culture where the dragons are invisible and they can pounce you at any time, I have to give my kids the armament to do that battle. I have to train them about the ghosts that hide in the dark, and they have teeth and they will bite you in the back of the neck. If I don't give them that, when they get caught up in it, we know where that story goes. And so, as much as I did not want to assault their naivety, I had to do it for the sake of their well-being. So that began the conversations of describing to them what pornography is. Obviously not showing it to them, but describing it for them, what it is, and talking about how likely it is that all of their peers have already been initiated into pornographic activities and then behavior. So then I'm having to describe to the older kids what masturbation is. Sometimes people misunderstand me on that point. Not demonstrating, describing conceptually what it is. And it was actually reassuring when I would, and that probably waited a few years. I think that would have been like the oldest boys would have been 13, 14, somewhere in there. Nowadays, most boys have already begun the habit of masturbation by that age. When I just described it to Sage and Orion, immediately they were just repelled in every way.
Because they had no framework for why that activity would take, like, that is an appropriate response.
Yeah. Yeah, that reaction on their part, I think, is normal. We live in a day where we've confused what's common for what's normal. And so that we have a country full of people where it's just a running joke how often somebody's going to masturbate and what is going to be the fetish that gets them there. There's not even any aversion to talking about it anymore. People celebrate what their habits are. My kids were repelled by the thought of it. And it is a repugnant activity. Like there's nothing that makes you better in any of that. And there's a lot that's actually probably going to make you worse. And so I liked it a lot, as much as I hated introducing it to them conceptually, that they had a natural born aversion to it. And then also there's the security of one of their buddies not being the ones to introduce them to it. And God bless, do we have so many stories of little brother didn't know what was what until big brother actually shows him. And then there is a demonstration like, yeah, this is how you have fun when mom and dad aren't around. The cousin that does it, the uncle that does it, how often this happens in an abusive scenario. So we have parents that have been raised to teach their kids about body parts language and things not to permit. And you have a lot of parents that are saying like only mom and dad or a doctor can touch you in these places. And the doctor only gets to do it when we're there. And so they start doing these safety protocol things. They have a little bit of their own abuse prevention protocol, and that's good. But there is so much more with all of the pornography outlets being everywhere that kid is going to go. And it's not often when you have parents that are proactive in that regard. Accordingly, we see the statistics of kids in the church being hardly indistinguishable from the kids outside, which is alarming. Like, you would think we would have something that's netting a difference, and we don't. To live in a world where the average age of exposure is 8, and that's the average, which means
Yeah.
you've got half of the bell curve that's younger than 8 being exposed to pornography, but that the average is 8. We rarely hear about anybody that gets beyond 13 that hasn't been initiated into a habit of now a pornography addiction. How can we imagine that being something that we just accept?
Or don't look at.
How do you not acknowledge that? It's a terrifying datum.
I loved your words. My goodness, I want to sit with them, where it was training and survival training instincts for the dragons that are hiding in the darkness. And the conversation with the parent is, you don't still have time. The countless conversations that I have just from moving through the world of talking with parents that say, I started around 13. I thought I had time, and I found out my son's been looking at pornography for the last 3 years. Or my son has, or my daughter has been exposed to very much the LGBTQ plus same-sex attraction ideology because I didn't realize that they had a classmate for the last 5 years that liked girls and she was a girl. And so now I'm having to do all this work to begin introducing that how this is wrong. But for the last 5 years, that child's imagination was framed. This just must be a part of how the world is, because mom and dad had never had that conversation. You said when you realized that your children, despite your best efforts, were going to encounter places outside of your home where they could be exposed or harmed or introduced, or their imagination could be sparked in a way that you didn't control, that you then had to begin training them, preparing them for such a defense. In my framework, my kids have been going to daycare for the last 4 years. It's still an early age conversation, but this matters because I've had to, sure, give them the definitions and the anatomical terms and the understandings that, we're only touching here or talking about these places when we're going to the bathroom or the doctor or this, that, and the other. But even my 4-year-old has kids in his class that are already creating games that are introducing sexualized components. I have had to begin his training at the age of 4 that there is no such thing as a pull the pants down game or run around the playground and spank each other game, or the boys spank the girls or the girls spank the boys. And like, if I wasn't asking these questions, these seeds would just continually be planted. And then I would, if I took the horribly normative path of most parents, which is assuming that they're good because my home environment is fairly controlled and they go to church and they're good kids, and then I'll start around 12, 13, or 14, these seeds would have grown to who knows what by the time I chose to begin having this conversation at the age of 13 or 11 or 12. And so for thesextalk.com, for any parent listening, it is helpful for you to understand that we are begging you to begin age-appropriate conversations around the age of 6. And obviously, every context is different, and you have those age-appropriate conversations for a decade. And so you talked about when you told your children about the idea of pornography. One of my favorite courses in the Sex Talk is where Matt Fradd literally gives the parent the playbook. It's the best playbook ever for how to talk to your children about what pornography is. And it is simply, hey son, hey daughter, if you ever see a picture or if you ever see videos of individuals where parts of their bodies are showing that a bathing suit would normally cover, that's called pornography. And I want you to come tell me right away, and I'll be so proud that you did. And if you are the first person to give him that before he or she has any of those experiences, you've given them that mental framework, that template for, I can go tell mom and dad. Oh, I should go tell mom and dad. Mom and dad want me to go tell them this. And I think Part of me is trying to think through the lens of the listening parent. It's like, what are you thinking in your brain right now? You're probably thinking, I still have time. You're probably thinking, my kids don't go over to sleepovers. Where or how is this going to happen? Well, what we've seen is the school bus is one of the main places of exposure. The uncle's magazine rack next to the bathroom. You physically can't imagine all of the places, the Hulu commercials on the kids' TV show that they're watching. This is the most disgusting commercial ever. Brittany and I see them all the time, but there's this like 30-second long commercial around AIDS prevention on Hulu commercials and Disney commercials. And so it's like two guys cuddling each other in a bed and two girls holding hands while they walk to a coffee shop, and it goes on and on. And it's disgusting. But your child can't process that. Are you allowing the world to plant seeds in their imagination that are going to blossom to thorns that are going to wrap around their hearts and their souls and choke them to death? So, mom and dad, please hear us. I'm begging you. We built the sextalk.com to give you the easy button. We literally downloaded 25 years of the best stuff we got to give to mom and dad. It's only 14 nights of choosing to watch that instead of Netflix, and you'll be good to go. That seems like a low bar to protect the future of your children and secure their innocence. I don't know. I am excited about how you've been parenting, Whaler. I've been taking notes. I like the idea of I was not able to move through the world in a reality where I didn't have a pornified imagination at a young age, and I've had to do all the hard work of working through that. Can I give my child the gift of not having my struggle?
It's absolutely tenable. We have a 4-generation family legacy in that regard. Every generation has become more difficult by the numbers, but my kids are in the most pornified culture ever, and I won't say it's easy, but it is simple, and it doesn't have the allure for them that it has for everybody else. They see the repugnance of it. They see the monstrosity that it is. If we hadn't begun those conversations, now there's a lot of curiosity. And that's what happens. If you don't give your kids a sexual template, or if you don't cultivate your kids' sexual template alongside them, it is going to go wild somewhere else. When you talk about the subtlety of the insidious seeds, I know a family where they had a daughter that was around 15, I think it was. Good people, not perfect. They got their things like everybody. Integrous in the way they've been doing life. Invested in their kids. Very proactive. 15-year-old daughter comes and tells them that she's realized she likes girls. So comes out to her parents as a lesbian. Doesn't do it proudly. Does it with difficulty. This girl loves the Lord. Had been dug into youth group culture, deep in her Bible. And so for her, it was a panic kind of a confession. She didn't want this, but here's her desires, and she's got to be honest. And so 2 savvy parents, they had some training in how to respond, so they weren't coming from a place of ignorance. I haven't found an exception to this rule yet, but whenever you find somebody that's dealing with SSA or LGBTQ, or I'd like to buy a vowel, or I'm this gender today, we'll see what I am tomorrow, whatever the expression is, at the bottom of that confusion, there's always a wound or a lie, oftentimes both. If you find the wound or the lie at the root, you get to the beginning of this manifest expression, not an authentic discovery, but kind of a mutation of desire. So mom and dad lean into that kind of language with the daughter, and it begins a several months exploration. We were in dialogue much of that time, so it was a gift to be there. And without berating their daughter, they just kept having conversations, kept exploring things together, and the daughter was intentional. And after months, there was a day where she had a memory come back out of nowhere. She's 12. She's in a theater performance. She's backstage with a group of kids and young teens. And it was an innocent enough conversation where they're just discussing who their crushes are. Well, this girl didn't have a crush. She was 12. That part of her hadn't woken up yet. And she just says that. She's like, oh, I don't really think there are any boys that I like. And then one of the teen girls is like, oh, maybe you're bi or lesbian. That one statement And this 12-year-old girl's imagination burrowed down like a seed and colored her sexual template. There was nothing wrong with her for not having a crush on a boy. That part of her plumbing just hadn't woken up yet. She was a right kind of prepubescent that wasn't obsessive over stupid romance when you're a tween with no business getting there anyway. But then one of the cool kids says, well, maybe you're this instead. And that had an identity marker on it. And that wasn't a conversation that she had with her parents. Didn't occur to anybody as a thing to report. Nobody touched her. Nobody said a mean thing to her. But here's this maybe suggestion. And that festered for 3 years until it really morphed into this comprehensive, this is who I am. And that was a hard thing that this 15-year-old girl had to walk through, of getting back to the original lie that began the whole saga. It's like, God bless, how many, hey, if this happens, like, there's
Sure.
an infinite array of it's impossible to build out. Whereas the basic principles of we know what's good
Mm-hmm.
and we know what's bad. So if the bad things manifest, we're going to contend with them and we will not relent until they are defeated. And the good things, we are going to fan those into flame with everything that we have to bring to bear.
Mm-hmm.
And so the parents really cannot overestimate how much assault their children are dealing with every day. It's coming from every quiet corner. And it's impossible to have a daily debrief where you're going to hear any errant word that came across their headspace. Your kids themselves may not be aware of it.
Yep.
Until the thing kind of grows in the dark and reveals itself later. This girl had no idea how impactful that 12-year-old moment was. Whereas if you are a parent that has opened many doors and windows to talking about God's beauty in sexuality, you've removed any potential awkwardness. It's not awkward. It's just what you talk about. When you normalize it, it is then normal for the kids. And they want to know about these things. You are the best person. You are the single most qualified person to be your kids' coaches of sexuality. And if you do not fulfill that role, somebody else is going to, and they are going to destroy your kid's sexual template. Why would you consign them to that? Get them on the winning side of the battle before it becomes a problem.
Yeah, and with that story too, your point is correct that there is no reality that you can create where you will be able to protect your child from every iota of every possible point of exposure. It's not if, but when they are exposed. Any parent listening, the question to you now is, at whatever age your child is right now, or whatever age they will be as they move through your home until they leave your home, when they are encountered with it, when they are exposed to it, when the idea presents itself, does your child know that mom and dad are the people I go to talk to about these things? It's not if, but when. And I think that helps a parent better understand that question. So if you have an 8-year-old son right now, does he know beyond the shadow of a doubt that if his friend opens up his phone and shows him pornography, that one, that's pornography, and two, I should go talk to mom and dad about this? Does your 11-year-old daughter know that there are people in the world that act in ways outside of God's design? And when she's exposed to that, she can go talk to mom and dad about that. Or at minimum, she knows that they're acting in a way that God hasn't designed. So as mom and dad, when we are equipping parents with the sextalk.com, the goal is not to somehow create some environment where your child is never exposed. No, we are equipping you, mom and dad, to train and prepare your children for the whens, the when they're exposed, the when they're encountered, the new teenage goodnight kiss is oral sex. How many parents know that? When your child is first offered oral sex in a dating context because it's not penetration and intercourse, so it's okay. Do they know, because you got there first, why and how to say no to that, et cetera, into ad nauseum? That's what we want to train mom and dad for. That's what I want to train my kids for. And so it's impossible for you to do everything, but it is simple for you to do the one thing, which is prepare your child for the when.
Everybody is being harmfully sexualized in a pornographic setting so that when they're with a real person where romance should be happening, in a covenantal arrangement at least, they can't function anymore
Mhm.
because their bodies have been trained only to respond to what has been digitized in front of them. And that began when they were teenagers, prepubescents, little kids. It's happening right now with your kids. It is really bad. And we can't overemphasize how suddenly you need to take action. Like, there really shouldn't be anything else with greater urgency than this.
It impacts sexual abuse and the statistics that are going off the chart there. It impacts divorce and infidelity and the statistics that are going off the rails there. It impacts porn-induced erectile dysfunction and the things that are going off there. Like, it is the reason we're so passionate about it is because not focusing on this issue as the imperative nature that it must have is like sticking your head in the sand and saying they'll figure it out. It'll be all right. But the statistics are obviously saying it's not going to be all right. Forget the statistics, the traumatic stories, the horrible brokenness, the amount of women that had sexual harm done to them. And why? Why? Why wouldn't you give your children that gift for their life on earth? Why wouldn't we spend our energy to create a generation that moved through the world with integrity and honor and care and protection? Why wouldn't we raise our sons that way? Why wouldn't we raise our daughters that way? Why would we say, I hope it'll be all right. I had one talk. It was really awkward. They'll figure it out and then be surprised.
Yeah. Well, given the data, it's likely that the adult listener, the parents joining us right now, they have experienced harm
Yes.
from their own story with sexuality. There's probably no small amount of pornographic engagement. God forbid, I'm terribly sorry. It's likely there was abuse at some point. So they know for themselves what it's like to grow up in a world where they were not prepared. Why not be for your kids what you wished you had at that age? Why not give them what you wish had been given to you in the most tender, vulnerable chapters, especially when you have the means? In this case, these conversations absolutely can be had at home. And for the help that you need, we already have the curriculum put together. And it's been fun hearing the parents give us the notes on,
Mhm.
yes, it's helped them have these conversations with their kids, but also the conversations they're having with their spouses.
Mhm.
They're learning about their own sexuality while they're going through the course. The fun of the theology of sex is coming to life when they have this date night in the living room where they're watching a session. Instead of Netflixing it, it's sextalk.com for the night. And the conversations they have often lead to fun husband and wife sexy time, so added bonus. But they're fanning their own flame with each other. They're coming to clarity and solidity within themselves. And all of that is informing now what they get to cultivate on behalf of their kids. The atmosphere in which they get to environ these little souls that they've been charged with. You wished you had it. Don't wish it for them, just give it to them. It's easy.
Yeah, I'd be curious too. If you're listening, did you get the sex talk in the data that we've seen? Most people got none, didn't get a single one. I would say at the moment it's looking something like 85% didn't get a single talk at all.
Mm.
And you see the results.
Yep.
I've never, this is an interesting idea to pull on. I've never had anyone in my decade of work here come across our desk because they were struggling with pornography or unwanted sexual behaviors because their parents did so amazing with regular and ongoing age appropriate conversations around sex and sexuality.
Yeah. Yeah, so when did your problems begin with pornography? Man, it was when my dad took me with Proverbs 6 through 8, you know? He read Proverbs 6 through 8 to me. I've been struggling with pornography ever since. That's never the story, ever.
But if I could tell a parent, if I could tell you, I can guarantee you, okay, guarantee is a strong word. I can very strongly encourage a reality where you give your children the gift of not having this darkness in their life. Why would you say no? Why would you not immediately go to the sextalk.com and sign up? Why would you say, no, thank you, I'm busy. My life's really full right now. I think it's better that my child not be trained and equipped for this and figure it out on their own, and then best of luck.
What did Orson Scott Card said? Those who love peace have to become better at the thing they hate than those who love war.
That's so good.
The path to peace always passes through war. And so there is no such thing as a pacifism that is only wishing for things to get better. This is not one where we can just wring our hands and hope really hard that everything works out. And I'm not going to throw my kids out there without any training of any kind. What kind of lunacy is that?
Ah, I love that. And what is it? It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. It is not hyperbolic to call this a war. We have seen the fallout.
Mhm.
We have seen the destruction. We have seen the brokenness. So, dear Lord Jesus, to the listening parent, be a warrior in your garden. Don't posture yourself as a gardener in this war, because what happens to the gardener in the war? They get eaten up and spit down, trampled, destroyed. Their story is not pleasant, but it's not complicated to be a warrior. It's actually very simple. Sure, we're using warrior language. It's not complicated to be engaged and give your children this gift of securing their innocence. Hop into the sextalk.com. It is an amazing, interactive. We flew all over the country. We spent well over $100,000 giving you, and to your point of like, we don't want to be the porn guys. I want the sextalk.com to make a world where I don't have a job anymore.
I would love to get fired from this job.
Please. So if you're a parent listening, by all means,
We are trying to work ourselves out of a job.
take that agency upon yourself. We can create a generation that didn't have our story. So many people I talk to, so many parents I talk to say, I don't feel like I can even have this talk because I'm not doing great in this area. Where I'm not even remotely equipped or qualified to have this conversation. First and foremost, if you're not, who is? And then you're just saying, well, I guess I'm just going to throw them to the wolves and they'll figure it out, which I know that you're not saying. But what I'm saying is, if you're still working on this for yourself, which I'm betting you are, lean in, we're here for you. But you can still give the gift that your children won't have to. There is no required rule that says you must be a master of your own sexual integrity before you can begin discipling and shepherding your children in this way. That's the ideal. That's what I want. But don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you from leaning in. Don't let that stop you from reaching out into your community. We have stories of communities that have said, we're going to do the sextalk.com together. And we're all going to go through it because we're all kids, all play together. The parents all hang out together. Amazing stories of them all now being like, all right, we're on it. We're in the game. And we continue moving on about our lives. This doesn't have to like hijack your whole parenting reality for the next 20 years. I think sometimes people think that that's what we're saying. No, we're just saying, to your point, which you mentioned earlier, destigmatize it, normalize it. God made it. There's nothing God made that we can't talk about. And I like looking at it as a family discipleship curriculum because there's plenty of people that have an imagination for any other discipleship curriculum or any other little curriculum they do with their kids or they would do together as a couple. Hey, 14 days of a family discipleship curriculum that will literally change the trajectory of your child's life. Seems like a low bar. The secret sauce to giving your children a biblical sexual ethic in a reality where they don't struggle for the rest of their lives is not one awkward conversation for 30 minutes. 30 minutes over 15 years or 30 minutes a week for 15 years.
Yeah.
That math's hard. And parents are like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know when to say it. I don't know how to say it. Guess what? We literally answered every one of those questions in the sextalk.com. And here's why. You might be asking, why do you keep pushing the sextalk.com? Because no conversation Whaler and I can have for 1 hour can give you everything that you need to know. But I can spend 2 years, over $100,000, putting it all down into a really easy to engage with, whether it's on your smartphone or on your TV, curriculum that you only have to do for 14 days as a mom and dad to then teach you how to have the best, easiest, simplest, most chill conversations 30 minutes a week for 16 years. And that is the recipe for success. So if you are a parent and you are listening, I implore you, click the link below, sign up, lean in. We are about ushering in the next generation into the world without pornified imaginations. We once unpacked the very, very small investment for the sextalk.com. It's only $99 a year. I think that equates out to like $8 a month. How much does a divorce cost? How much does counseling cost? How much does sexual abuse cost? Like, the dollar amounts are astronomical compared to a little investment now. And by the way, this isn't so that we can make money. This is so we can tell more parents. This is so we can go save more kids. This really is why I wake up in the morning, saving more kids, saving your kids, protecting them, securing their innocence, ensuring they're thriving in the world. And so if you want to know more, check out thesextalk.com. If you have a question for us, shoot us an email at info@thesextalk.com. We want you to give your kids the gift I didn't have, that I wish my parents had given me. I want you to lean in, like we said, 30 minutes a week, low bar, easy to do. Don't stop. Your world's going to get busy right away. You're going to think of the next thing you got to go to. You're going to think of the meeting you're about to hop into, the dinner you got to make. This is all real and true. I'm not in any way saying that doesn't matter. All I'm saying is just pause for a minute and act so that you can help equip your children and train your children for the when, because it's not if, it's when.
Welcome to thesextalk.com, where parents can go to get clear and confident to have the sex talk with their kids.
Because I think sometimes we think we're the first generation of Christians who's had to live in a sexually depraved society, and we're not.
We are so glad that there is material like this for our world.
We ourselves are often nervous about having the conversations with our kids.
The sex talk is about so much more than the birds and the bees or explaining to your kids where babies come from.
In that, we need to come alongside them and serve as a coach.
We only have a window of time to invest in our children.
What do you wish you would have had when you were 12?
We're going to take a journey that might be a bit uncomfortable, but if we will pass through the truth shall make us free.
It is such an important conversation for you to have with your children, and we are just so thankful that it's now available.
What these conversations are, I think, is something that our culture and society need to be having holistically.
Because we do believe that it is life-changing for you, your marriage, for your family, and for your child. We are so honored to be your guides throughout each session of this course. So let's jump in.